But anyway, I do a lot of work with wearable electronics, although I'm quite new to it, honestly. But I like to show this because this is my first wearable project, which is really hideous. But I made these crazy go-go gloves that were meant to control dancers on screen, and sort of that was where I learned about like conductive fabric and that sort of thing. So I lifted these fashion women out of a magazine and created this interface so that people could have secret dance parties. This is another piece that's an earlier prototype. It's called Reconnect, but it's basically about the idea of just sort of reconnecting with yourself. So what happens is when you sort of do these gestures of hugging yourself or turning inwards, you activate a series of vibrations along your shoulder spine. This is another project that was dealing with personal space. So this is a jacket that actually logs your personal space over the course of a day so that you can go back and look at it and sort of see what your experience was. And we did different experiments with it and like looked at other factors like heart rate and that sort of thing. But it was just kind of like sort of a network sensing system that was logging data onto your phone for later visualization, which you could review. But yeah, this was a pair of Heelys that were hacked so that they actually included a generator. So that when you roll, these are like the kids' rolling shoes, when you roll, you generate electricity. And this particular version of it, the energy harvesting Derive, what you do is actually power up a microcontroller, and your shoes would lead you on this kind of random journey. So after you roll a certain amount, the shoes would select a new direction for you to go in that direction. So you can kind of see the motor in the sole of the shoe. And then outside of the technology realm, I do a lot of work with like what I call inquisitive devices and relational garments. So this stuff is a lot more playful. So I'm really interested in people and how people relate to each other and how there's all these really interesting moments and how a lot of it's also really incredibly awkward and strange and wonderful. And so I try to create physical representations of the ways we relate to each other. And sort of think about that space between two people and what the sort of crazy energy that happens there. So anyway, I make all these devices, and some of them I end up actually sort of giving out to people. I guess I'll talk about that in a second, but I won't spend too much time on these because they're not totally relevant. But make things like muttering hat, which allows you to share your thoughts with someone else, or talk to yourself hat. So you can speak out loud to yourself but still have a somewhat private conversation. These are inflatable hearts, which are kind of external organs that you can use to express yourself. A gut listener, which is pretty self-explanatory. And at some point I did this project called This Device is For You, where I actually just started handing all these devices out to other people and asked them to use them and document their experience. So I worked with making these instruction sets to give with the device, because I was giving them to people I didn't know and I'd never meet them. So I would show them how to conduct the device test if they were being asked to test the devices, and then give them these sort of cryptic instructions on how to use it. It was just sort of playing with the tension of showing them a bit of how to use it, but trying not to give too much context, so there would be some room for them to kind of play or do things that were unexpected. So like trying just like little simple details, but trying to not, with an inflatable heart, showing that you attach it somewhere, but it doesn't matter where, you can do whatever you want with it. And then simple things like a warning label, like, caution, this device is daring but delicate, capable of making a bold statement, but only when, I can't read that.
Risking explosion.
Risking explosion. Handle with care, but use with courage. After all, hearts are meant to be broken. Anyway, just sort of playing with the idea of DIY and instructions and that sort of thing. So I make a lot of stuff in this problem, which I won't spend too much time on. But within the realm of thinking about bodies that communicate and relate, based off of Leah's designs for the lily pad, I worked with Rob Flutie to create a breakout board for the XP radio, because we saw a lot of our students kind of trying to tape radios into their clothing, and it was very awkward. So it just seemed like a nice addition to the lily pad suite. So luckily we got to work with Leah and with Nathan, and we got it out there, and now people are using it, which is a lot of fun. And that's what we use in the wireless workshop. So yeah, but just thinking about all these different ways in which you can sort of transmit and receive data with articles of clothing, whether you're just sort of communicating with the computer, which is then controlling the projection on the screen, or whatever, or your networking lots of different garments. There's lots of options. This is a project by Amy Cushman that uses it. It's sort of this crazy bird mask audio controller for performance. She does this like beautiful performance with it. It's really nice. This is a project by Alexander Reeder, Dream Jammies, which transmits sleep data. The whole reason he made it was because he was living in New York, finishing his graduate degree, and his wife was in Tokyo. And so they would kind of just share their sleep experience from across the world. So anyway, yeah, so just in the realm of tools and DIY, this is an older project. This isn't exactly textiles related, but it's kind of the most in-depth DIY project I've done. This is a collaborative project called Botanicals that allows your houseplants to make phone calls or send Twitter messages. So originally, those are the next people who I worked with. So it's sort of gone in all these different forms, but originally it was this really sort of complex system with all these different plants and nodes and all this stuff, and we installed it at NYU. It was great, but we wanted to sort of give it away so other people could use it. And the system was kind of really expensive, and we were working with, lots of different types of plants. But we were working specifically with the telephone, which we really liked, but running your own phone system is a bit complicated, so we ended up switching over to Twitter, which has an open API, which means that you don't have to be maintaining a server and doing all these sort of more in-depth technological tasks. So once we switched over to Twitter, we were able to sort of publish DIY instructions for how someone, in an afternoon, if they had the right parts, could put together their own botanical system. And that was kind of a really nice moment, because it was like, okay, it's not ours anymore, it's anyone's, and they can do whatever they want with it. It's based off of Arduino, so the code is open source, so they could, modify it however they wanted. But then with, any instruction set, sometimes depending on your audience, acquiring the parts is too much of a barrier of entry, sort of sourcing stuff. So we ended up, this is sort of the hacky Redbird version. Then we ended up working with Lamar Fried, Adafruit, and making our first kit, which was really fun. So this is the version 1 of the kit, which we fondly refer to as the sandwich. But anyway, so we worked with mostly with parts that Lamar had in stock, and so it was really easy for us to get it out there. So then someone would just buy the whole kit and put this thing together. So that was really great. But then from there, we realized we could actually lower the cost dramatically if we, oops. Oh, it's unfortunate. Sorry. If we, sort of made our own PCB, printed circuit board, in the shape of a leaf. Anyway, we ended up sort of making our own board, which made the cost of the kits a lot cheaper. So for me, this was just a really good learning experience in terms of thinking about how to make something accessible. And this is all within parentheses, because it's like, this is still isn't accessible. It's still a $100 kit. It's relatively accessible, but it's dictated by the cost of the parts and that sort of thing. But just different ways of getting stuff out there. So this is what the final kit looked like. And so you just set it up in your plant at home, plug it into the Ethernet cable, and we'll send you Twitter messages. Anyway, it was just sort of interesting to see what was happening in online communities. So your plants are on Twitter, then you suddenly have 3,000 people yelling at you when your pot roast has been watered. Anyway, and just sort of seeing stuff emerge on our forums, but then also on places like Flickr, people documenting how their plants were doing. This is a screenshot of something. But then also sort of seeing people help each other, which is, I think, the greatest part of these tools. So people would start posting their own guides to how to use it and how to modify it, and that sort of thing. And that's when it sort of gets exciting.